Good evening and welcome to the Hedberg Public Library. My name is Jean Yeomans and I'm the Adult Services Coordinator. Tonight we'll learn even more about Janesville's history in the third part of our four-part series called Piecing the Past Together at Your Library, presented by the Rock County Historical Society. Tonight's program is all about what was that? Specifically, unusual items owned by the Historical Society and items the public have shared with our talented staff and volunteers at the Society. Last month, we asked the public to take items to the Historical Society to be identified, and tonight we'll see what people shared. I'm pleased to introduce Phil Schauer and Lee Foster, Rock County Historical Society board members, and Laurel Fant, collections manager. Their research skills and enthusiasm for all things Janesville are inspirational. Thanks also to Madge Murphy for running the PowerPoint tonight. Let's welcome Phil, Lee, and Laurel.
Tonight we hope all of you will enjoy with us examining some objects from the past. The usage puzzling, not exactly straightforward. Many have had their functions obscured or have become obsolete through changes in fashion, housekeeping, advances in technology, altered lifestyles, and generally just the passage of time. So sit back, smile or frown with us and help us answer the question, what is it? We have a painted wooden cabinet with a stenciled factory label, thick-walled aluminum interior with a circular well and hinged lid for easy access. What is it? Good guess. Would you believe it's a stove? It was produced by the Janesville Caloric Company, located on the south end of Jackson Street. This single well is property of the Historical Society, and it was claimed to be able to cook completely anything an ordinary range or stove could do, even bake rolls in 25 minutes. This was accomplished through the use of superheated round stones or radiators, heated like you would a flat iron, and placed above and below a kettle inserted into the stove well. You can see them. You can see the kettle, and then has a locking lid. This is this one stone. There will be a stone on the bottom, stone on the top. Kettle goes in, stone on the top, lid goes down. The intense heat and insulating quality of the stove did the rest. It was priced from $8.50 to $19, depending on the size, and was available in double well models as well. We have only the single one here to show you this evening. Each model came with appropriately sized soapstone radiators, tongs for handling, and kettles with locking tops to prevent accidents. Outdoor campers can relate this to a similar method involving a cast iron Dutch oven filled with your favorite recipe, left many hours completely buried in a deep hole of red-hot hardwood embers. I can assure you it'll cook anything perfectly, including sticky buns from scratch. Caloric, along with Doty Manufacturing Company, which made washing machines, they were the only two Janesville companies to manufacture home appliances.
What is it? This is the case closed. Here it is open. You see the white object on top with a little brass piece holding it in place. Vern knows what it is. I'll give you a hint. Here's a glove. It's a glove stretcher and case. There's a glove stretcher. This is made of ivory or bone. A lot of people guess this as a curling iron, but because of the nature of the material, obviously it wouldn't work to heat that. And you would insert the glove stretcher into one of the fingers, and then as you pinch the handles, it opens it up and it would stretch the glove out after it had been washed. The smaller piece there is actually a button hook to attach so that you could button the gloves, usually on the wrist.
What are they?
These shells came from the bottom of the Rock River right here in Janesville. They are actually the waste product from one of our earlier industries. From 1899 to 1907, 3 brothers, Charles, Eugene, and Emil Rosling, owned and operated a fairly unique enterprise. First at 113 North Main and later at 975 North Jackson, their factory was known as the Janesville Pearl Button Company. They made mother of pearl buttons. As the demand for buttons increased after the Civil War, a new source was needed for the raw material of shells. Freshwater clams were found to be suitable, and there were plenty in Midwestern rivers. The Rosling brothers took advantage of the abundance of freshwater clams. Clam boats operated up and down the river, open them, remove the worthless meat, and sell them by the ton to the button factory. Belt-driven lathes were used to cut out the button blanks from each shell. The rough button was then polished and holes were drilled to accommodate thread. Few buttons were sold locally. The bulk of production was placed on cards, boxed, and shipped all over the United States. At first, the waste shell was cast back into the Rock River, just like many waste products of the day. Our shells came from near the site of the first factory. Later, shells were ground up and used as chicken feed. The button industry came to an abrupt end in Janesville. A new machine was developed that allowed one person to feed clamshells into one end almost as fast as they could, and out the other end came finished buttons. The Janesville Pearl Button Company closed its doors in 1907. The Rosling brothers used their assets to open up a grocery store at the corner of Center Avenue and Rockport Road. The building still stands, and in its later years was the home of Case Feed and Produce.
All right. Did you see these on the back? And it says baby armlet on it, right? That gives you a clue. Lightweight aluminum, snaps to adjust. So what is it used for? I've also attached some safety pins to this. You would attach it to the baby's shirt. This goes on the baby, on their arm. You put it on their arm. It prevents them from bending their arm and sticking their thumb in their mouth. So it's to prevent thumb, and that's the typical expression I get. So, there's a picture of the box. It still exists. $1 a pair. $1 per pair, right? Thumb sucking is a bad habit. You know, it makes those upper teeth stick out. It can damage the soft palate, according to this box. So.
Beginning with General Motors, let's think backwards to its precursor, Samson Tractor. Then, further still to their roots, and we arrive at the Janesville Machine Company. Shown here in this early photo, it looks like some kind of a setup at the fair, probably here, or maybe the state fair. You can see the implements that they made in the background a bit. So what did they make? Here's a ticket that lets us take a peek. Evidently put that in your hat, and you could walk in through the factory, and you were okay. During the late 19th and early 20th century, this company was the largest and most well-known of Janesville's agricultural implement manufacturers. They were producing a wide variety of plows, listers, cultivators, seeders, weeders, and mowers. These photos, taken from a rare, undated turn-of-the-century catalog, allow us a more detailed and colorful glimpse of then everyday products that today are exceedingly rare or non-existent. Walk behind a cultivator. Interesting in that operator and draft animals shared the same trodden path. No seat, but innovative wide concave wheels added stability and dust-proof grease fitting, along with adjustable depth regulators for uniform scouring of the soil. Number 7, there's one of the ads showing Not sure what that's one of the disc, that may be the next cultivator, I guess. Yeah, number 7, disc cultivator. Had a hand lever and ratchet to control discs. It was a typical combination of steel, cast iron, and machine parts. The next item is a turf and stubble buggy, or sulky, I'm sorry. Kind of just a fancy name for a single row riding plow that could turn at right angles, supposedly without halting the horse's forward movement. Next, we have the Haluk Leader. This was regarded as a huge improvement over the spike-tooth drag, and the operator gets to ride on this thing. Still, they claim that 2 horses could pull it all day long with good results. You were able to add optional force feed seaters to this, and you could sew rows up to 12 feet wide. This company was established in 1881 by James Harris and Allen P. Lovejoy, and by 1908 was the largest manufacturer in the city with 300 employees, producing over $500,000 worth of products annually. A catalog called Janesville Farm Implements, issued about this time and used here, is available in the Janesville room of the Hedberg Public Library. At first glance, one might think this metal tool with a wooden grip is a bacon press. Not. It shows wear along its aluminum raised spine, offset from center, along its otherwise flat bottom. Well, what is it? It's a concrete edger. It's made special by the raised letters on the other side. The next picture, I think, shows some of it. Anyway, we see that it's Clinton, Wisconsin, which makes it a special test. S&H Manufacturing Company, Clinton, Wisconsin. This was a local company that was founded by Andrew Holtum, who immigrated from Denmark. He settled in Racine in 1887. He worked various foundry jobs and produced his own backyard brass castings, supplying bells for the Racine and Milwaukee Fire Department engines. He moved to Clinton in 1902, where with a partner, Corvin Smith, produced a complete line of concrete finishing tools, along with a nickel plating business. The partnership later split, with his partner Smith forming the famous A.O. Smith Corporation in Milwaukee. Holtum continued in business until 1917.
You're all right.
And the factory building still stands on the corner of Front and Church Street, where it served later as the Clinton Township Hall. A local, Henry Larson, remembers the sound of metal clanging in the heat of the foundry fires, where he worked as a boy after school and on Saturdays for a nickel an hour.
What are these pieces of cast iron? They're about 12 inches by 14 inches and about an inch thick. They weigh about 15 pounds apiece. They show remnants of red-orange paint that may or may not be original. They're a fairly rough casting, and each has a different casting number or pattern number. Within the casting is the name of the maker. Harris Manufacturing Company, Janesville, Wisconsin. The Harris Manufacturing Company was established in 1859. James Harris and his partners were the first manufacturers of agricultural implements in Janesville. They produced a vast line of goods that were known for quality. They sold their products throughout the United States. Their operation was a large one. Their Franklin Street location housed a warehouse, office, wood shop, machine shop, foundry, and blacksmith shop. In 1881, the company reorganized and became the Janesville Machine Company. We heard a little bit about that a few minutes ago. James Harris went on with another partner to form the Janesville Barbed Wire Company, later called the Janesville Fence and Post Company. As times changed, a general line of hardware was added. That store still exists today as Harris Ace Hardware. The company is still owned and operated by the descendants of James Harris. We've still not answered the question of what these cast iron items are, only where they were manufactured. They are the end pieces or caps of a grain drill. A grain drill is an implement that is pulled behind horses or a tractor and drives or drills the seeds during planting into the ground. A broadcast type seeder simply spread seeds on the surface, and then they were raked into the ground. A grain drill was the much preferred implement for most seeds in our area. Some units could seed either way. Seed was placed into the long hopper that would hold up to 9 bushels. The seed would drop down into the planter for uniform placement into the crop field. Like cast iron tractor seats, these grain drill ends are very collectible, especially ones as clearly identified as these.
Everyone have their game in hand? All right. Here's the overall sheet. Here's the first item, top side. Here's the bottom side. What is it? Sheep shears, very good. Here it is in use. All right, the next one, there's a side view. Actually, the bottom view and the side view. And what is that? Oh, hog scraper. All right. Used to remove the bristle from the hog skin. All right. All right, this one. Good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. It's a rope tightener. The sleep tight with beds were slung with ropes, and you wouldn't want your ropes sagging. You wouldn't sleep tight. You wanted your tight. Bed bugs, of course, were in the old straw mattresses, and you didn't want the bed bugs to bite either. This would be put into the rope. The notch there goes over the rope. You would turn the handle, and that would tighten it, and then you could pull your rope tighter through the holes. All right, next item, this black tin item. All right, ear horn. The rounded base would catch the sound, and then it would funnel up to your ear through that. Good. All right. This is made by the Red Wing Stoneware Company. This is not the proper way to look at it. We'll show you the right way. This is the way it's really used. Chicken waterer. All right. You would have it upright to fill it, set it down, and then the chickens could feed out of that or drink out of that. This one's kind of hard from the top view. And the side view, made of wood and metal. Dates back to the 1870s. It came from a farm here in Wisconsin. It is a horseshoe used for marsh work. The broader base kind of acted like a snowshoe and helped the horses not get mired out in the marsh. It's particularly used for mowing and hauling marsh hay, according to the notes from the donor. Closed and open. A soap saver. Right, put your little scraps in there and you could use it, swish it around, make some suds. Top view. Everyone knows this one, right? A candle mold. Candle maker. The wicks are in place. The sticks, there's some sticks back there as well that you would tie the wicks to on the top so they wouldn't fall down as you poured the wax in place. All right. Any idea what this metal piece is?
Pot scrubber.
Pot scrubber, right. Early chore boy. Right? This one probably everyone knows, right? The rug beater. All right. This is made of wicker, woven. Oftentimes they're made of metal and iron. Just different degrees of fanciness. That's it. Any questions about the quiz? Anybody get them all right? Oh.
Okay, now anybody from the area should be able to recognize these. They're items and products of Pauline Pottery in Edgerton, Wisconsin. As with most pottery of the time, was made not only for decorative value, but also served a function, not always evident from the form. Examples include humidors, teapots, hair receivers, chocolate pots, punch bowls, cups, saucers, dinnerware, mud vases, tobacco jars. But what are these? They're candlesticks, which wouldn't be evident from the form at all. You know, this oversized base is, I mean, it's quite a strange form. It looks almost more like a ewer or something you would pour out of. But I think whoever was a real decorator and whoever developed this particular form, there were a number of different artists that worked there. I think they kind of wanted to show off, so they needed a bigger surface, a bigger canvas to kind of do it. Also, I guess I would say in their favor that I suppose this big base lent some stability to the object, so you wouldn't tip it over. And, you know, fire was much more of a danger in those days than we think of it now. These pictures and the items are pictured in a book that is available for your perusal back on the back table. It's also available at the Rock County Historical Society, along with our permanently displayed collection of over 70 wonderful pieces. So I urge you to stop over and take a look.
We had a number of items brought into us, and so that we could attempt to assist with further identification, or in some cases just answer some lingering questions. Sometimes we can help, other times not so much. Let's take a look at some of the things that were brought to us. This is a tire pump, typical of all made from 1890 to 1960. Common, plain, simple, ordinary. That is, until one looks at the very bottom. Then it takes on a special interest to many local people. Jasco Manufacturing Company, Janesville, Wisconsin. Clearly marked in the cast brass footplate for the simple tire pump. What is Jasco? Where were they located? When did they exist? And who was involved in the company? Let's take a closer look. T-handle is wood, as well as the collar at the top of the long air chamber. Base is cast brass. Air chamber is rolled steel. Plunger shaft is steel rod, and the hose filler line is rubber. This was an unknown company to all of us, so the search begins. City directories, industries, businesses, cast iron, brass, bicycle, auto, books, articles, dusty files, but nothing. What is Jasco? Could it be J.A. for Janesville, S for some company, and C.O. for company? Maybe. We looked at that, but it didn't make much sense since it also said manufacturing company. But when we looked, there was Janesville Spice Company, Janesville Sausage Company, Janesville Sewing Company, and others, but none of them fit with a tire pump. Set it aside, keep it in mind, and hope something shakes loose. Then it suggested that maybe JAS would be 3 initials of someone's name. James A. Smith, Joe A. Scott, John A. Sherman. But that would be a really long shot and hard to figure out without more than that to go on. We tried a little, but it just didn't work. So, put it away, save it for a rainy day, keep it in mind, ask around, and leave one more open file on your desk. It's not clutter. I'm still working on that. And now a what item that we will ask for help with. These knives were made by hand in the late 1940s through the 50s and into the 1960s. They are but a few examples of the knives made right here in Janesville by a man who is now unknown. They were the result of a small cottage-type industry. I can remember these knives being made in Janesville, but that's about all. Common characteristics include walnut handles, copper band, copper rivet, and a better grade steel that may have been recycled from files or saw blades. They were very well known and used even in local restaurants. If you know of these knives and can fill in any of the blanks, mostly name and address, please call the Rock County Historical Society, 756-4509. Your information would be appreciated. Machine steel, brass banded, original olive green paint, temporary plug in the nose, and weighs about 50 pounds. Look closely at the markings stamped in the side, and it is clear that this was made in 1944 and that it is a 105 millimeter projectile. This was used for howitzer guns by the U.S. Army during World War II. But what is the significance to our community? Well, this is one of the projectiles produced at our own GM plant during World War II. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the GM plant began to retool for the production of war materials. Because of censorship orders, the specifics of what any plant produced could not be published. As we all know, loose lips sink ships. By August of 1942, the GM plant had begun full production for the war effort. Up and running after a total retrofit, but the total number of people working and what they were manufacturing was one of Janesville's quiet secrets. Post-war, it was disclosed that our GM plant produced 90 millimeter projectiles, 3-inch armor-piercing projectiles, 3-inch solid shot projectiles, and 4.7-inch high explosive anti-aircraft shells. But the GM plant was mostly known for the 105 millimeter howitzer projectile. In fact, in 3 years of manufacture, the Janesville plant produced 16 million of these 105 millimeter projectiles. The brass casing, that is shown here, is put together with the projectile to form a complete shell. The plug was then removed and replaced with a fuse assembly. None of this was done in the Janesville plant. Other Janesville plants contributed to the war effort as well. Rock River Woolen Mills made Army and Marine uniforms. Ossett Furniture produced special wooden airplane seats. Gilman Engineering had a conversion to the total war effort. J.P. Cullen built 101 hospital buildings at Camp McCoy in Sparta. Janesville Cotton Company produced bandages for the Army and Red Cross. Parker Penn, bomb caps, radio parts, airplane parts, and 35 million parts for anti-aircraft shell fuses. The J.A. Strimple Company made small scooters to get around factories faster called power cycles. It wasn't until today that I actually found a picture of one of those, but we do have one. It's not on our PowerPoint projection. With the end of World War II, all factories stopped, and war production turned their efforts towards goods for the post-war boom that was just on the horizon. This projectile was most likely removed from the plant shortly after World War II as a remembrance or souvenir. Now, I mentioned the J.A. Strimple Company, and on Monday, while I was working on this program, I came across something that sort of puzzled me. I tried to piece two things together. I had never heard of J.A. Strimple Company, and I asked myself, who, what, when, and where? Because I realized that we had a strange coincidence working here, I dug a little deeper, and that's where I found the photos of the power cycle. That was in a 1942 end-of-year Gazette. Well, J.A. Strimple is J-A-S. And I wondered if that was J-A-S-C-O, and if that, by coincidence, could be the Jasco Manufacturing Company. Well, I looked, and they were in business first at 219 East Milwaukee, then 215 and 219 East Milwaukee, and then 215, 219, and 223 East Milwaukee. Well, all three of those storefronts are a parking lot today. They were in business from 1913 to 1952, well within the age of our pump. Up until 1929, they were listed in the city directory as an auto accessory company. During the war, we know what they produced, and after the war, they became a Chrysler, Plymouth, and Packard dealer. They maintained that until they got rid of the car dealership and became just a gas station. They had all of the means to be able to make something like our tire pump. I can't say it for sure yet, but I hope to be able to say that shortly, because I don't like open files. Changing a little bit, most will recognize this as a fire alarm box. Cast iron, painted red, white lettering, and heavy. The same type is seen in movies, cartoons, photos, and early TV. This box, number 57, was located on the corner of Locust and Chatham Streets here in Janesville. You can see it marked right there. And then I think there's one more that's closer up. It's right, that little red dot. This specific box was installed between 1903 and 1915. This is a 1915 map that we have that shows the firebox location. Competent local persons were chosen by the fire chief to hold keys for fireboxes. It was their job to open the box and sound the alarm if there was a fire nearby. For this service, they were paid 25 cents for each alarm sounded. Patrolmen and firemen also had keys. A pull down on the interior handle sounded the alarm. This alarm box was part of the Gamewell fire alarm system. The system was first introduced in 1888. As Janesville grew, new fireboxes were added. Each alarm box was connected to the main fire station by running wire on existing utility poles. An internal battery provided power. The Gamewell system was considered the best on the market in the U.S. But the real part of our what program is this machine. It is large, heavy, and it's not here tonight. It measures about 42 inches by 22 by 22 and weighs about 200 pounds. Copper, brass, nickel, steel, and all enclosed in a 1/4 inch thick glass case. It was made to withstand abuse and stay dust and debris free. But what is it? It is actually the important and unique part of the Gamewell fire alarm system. It is called the Annunciator or bell striker. This machine was permanently located in the main fire station. When a signal came over the wire from a pulled alarm, this machine determined which box that signal came from. Each alarm box had its own code tied to the box number. For our box number 57, the bell striker would gong 5 times, then pause, and then gong another 7 times, indicating 57. The fire department could then respond to the location of the box. Our alarm box, old number 57, was removed from its Chatham Locust Street location in 1965. The Gamewell system is obsolete, but the principle of coded alarms for fires and disasters at specific locations is still the standard. Both box number 57 and the Annunciator are part of the collection at the Rock County Historical Society.
Is the next object we're going to talk about, also portrayed on our PowerPoint presentation. You have the advantage of seeing it hung. I didn't. So this may sound a little, the way I'm describing it sounds a little silly because it pretty much is given away. But anyway, hung before you here, wood with seine twine fastened through pre-drilled painted hardwood frame rock maple, which doesn't splinter, doesn't split, very, very strong, serving to support and distribute the weight of the occupant. The ropes secured at the corners of the top and bottom are joined to central wooden sliding clasps through which the continuous line passes to an overhead anchor point. The simple mechanism allowed the user to adjust the height to suit individual comfort both at the head and the foot. So what is it? Well, it's a hanging chair manufactured by Huff Manufacturing. When you think of them, you kind of get a mental picture of shades and blinds, and then later on room dividers. But here we have what they referred to in 1905 as a Voodoo chair. It was also available as a hammock, and the ads proclaimed a most delightful out-of-door chair, combining all the comforts of a luxurious easy chair with the pleasurable movements of a hammock. 15 employees could produce 60 a day. However, sales depended on the dealer's ability to provide the proper setup and display so customers could try it before they purchased it. I think that probably really limited its availability or sales. The ad you saw, the 1905 advertisement that you saw on the screen, you can see that the company was interested in shades also, and then we had the hammock. Chair isn't pictured, but all part of the trademark Voodoo was means a door to the view, and it was an advertising concept that the Huff family brought back here to use when they relocated their business interests from South Butler, New York. But that's the chair. You can see that when you lay back in it, you can lower the head, you can raise the feet, the foot or bottom, and also there's the little wooden slat there connected by ropes. That was for a footrest. So depending on your length or however you're situated in it, you could raise or lower that for your own comfort. Pretty ingenious and pretty complete.
This is quite a unique and interesting little machine. It was displayed tonight over on the side table. We asked those in attendance to attempt to identify what it is and what is its use. Well, I'm pleased to announce that no one guessed what it was. Actually, I happened across this little beauty about a month ago, displayed just inside the door at Keeley Pharmacy. At first glance, I thought, oh, what is that? I could tell it was cast iron with a wonderful original paint surface. It had a lot of nickel-plated parts and some parts made of solid brass. It had a wheel crank that put pressure on a central cylinder. It had a neat cutter to slice whatever was forced out. It is made to mount to a tabletop or counter. It had many parts to allow the machine to be adapted to many different sizes, forms, and shapes of whatever it produces. Again, I ask the question, what is it? The machine was used by Badger Drug, King Drug, Bliss Drug, Parrish and Bailey drug, until it found its way into the current Keeley Pharmacy. The machine was made by the Whitehall Tatum Company, New York, Philadelphia, and Boston. It carries a patent date of March 26, 1895. And if we would have turned it around for our guests tonight, they would have been able to see that it is a Whitehall Tatum No. 3 suppository machine. Suppositories in the past were made by pharmacies on site. The mixed gooey material was placed in the cylinder, plus pressed through the appropriate fitting, cut to size, and packaged by hand. This specific machine was used until late 1940 right here in Janesville. It will be returned to Keeley Pharmacy and continue to be displayed there. Stop in for a closer look at 21 South Jackson. Special thanks to Pete Keeley and Mark Johnson for allowing us to use this little machine. We hope you enjoyed the program, What Is It? We hope you had fun and maybe learned a little bit. If you have any questions, we will all remain here for a while and attempt to answer them and add to the story in any way that we can. We just provide the basics. We just scratch the surface. We've only touched a fraction of the material at our disposal. The potential exists for hundreds of programs about items in the collections of the Rock County Historical Society. Those items presented this evening and many more are currently on display. The Helen Jeffers Wood Museum Center is the temporary home for the exhibit called Piecing the Past Together: Who, What, Where, and When. Admission is free. When Was It is the fourth segment of the Hedberg Public Library series, Piecing the Past Together. 7 o'clock p.m., Wednesday, March 12th at the Hedberg Library. The event is free and open to the public. Without the help and support of the following, we would never have been able to produce this program. David Reamer at Ace Hardware for the use of the grain drill ends. Vern Vollrath for the Jasco pump and the 105mm projectile encasing. Pete and Mark for the suppository machine. Gene Yeomans and the library staff, Rock County Historical Society and their staff, specifically Laurel Fant, Ruth Anderson, Dory Copleen, Ariana Freeman, and Madge Murphy. We'd also like to thank Dwayne Brewer with JATV. And I'd like to thank my fellow presenters, Phil Schauer and Laurel Fant, and all of you who attended this evening. Don't forget, we'll remain here for your questions. Thank you.